Okay, so this video is talking about burnout. Someone very close to me, whose opinion I take very seriously, was saying that I'm not really looking very well at the moment. I'm not really caring after myself as much as I could be. You definitely can't do a video when you're in the depths of feeling burnt out. So I have been feeling a little bit better about stuff, but certainly the last probably 2 years, I have definitely been in like the biggest dip that I've ever gone through. And a part of this YouTube channel is, I think any content online, people should share the highs and the lows. We all know that, right? But I came across a quote which basically said, so in like the content creation spheres, you have like building in public, basically share what you're doing, and you'll meet people along the way. And that's really fulfilling. I read a quote which said, don't build in public, but burn out in private. And that really hit home for me, because I have been feeling a little bit better. I want to talk about burnout, my experiences of burnout, and the signs if you ever feel that way in the future, to kind of spot. And then to openly share a couple of the reasons why I think in the last probably month or so I have actually started to feel better. Now, these are going to just be sort of random thoughts and scattered thoughts on my mind, and I'd like to be able to do a more in-depth video about it. But certainly there have been a couple of things which have helped. And before I would go on to like share how to get out of burnout or signs to spot if you're in burnout and things like that, I wanted to record a video like this, which will provide a bit more context. The reason I'm holding the microphone like this is because I just wanted to hit record on a video. I'm not very good at, like, it takes me too long to like set up a video. That's not what this video is about. But yeah, I have over here my laptop, which I have like 5 main points I want to cover. And this has been something I've been wrestling with myself. So some of these points are more thought out than other ones, but still. About 2 years ago, I think when COVID hit, like most of us, we all like had massive changes in our lives. One of which for me was very exciting, was that like I decided to work for myself, which is something I've always wanted to do. And what got me to that point of confidence to believe that I could do it was like a lot of self-work. And for me, that was defined as like reading books, because that's something I enjoy, or listening to podcasts, because that's something I enjoy, or beginning to see the fruits of putting myself out there, meeting interesting people and beginning to learn from them. Those positive traits got me to a position where I felt confidence, maybe not confidence, but I was able to take a leap of faith that I lost my job and I was like, cool, I'm going to turn this thing into a business. I'm going to go for it, right? And that was incredibly exciting, because not only is it like a business around like any old business, it's a business around what I actually enjoy. So there's this kind of like pinch myself aspect of it where I meet really cool people and I'm learning interesting things, and this is somehow a job. But what came with that as well was a lot of having to reinvent myself. So with any leap of faith or any sort of growth stage in our lives, like we have to change who we are, in the sense of you can't act maybe how you used to act, or your sort of behaviors and routines have expired and you have to step up to be someone better. A quote around this, which I love, I think James Clear said it, which is something like, entrepreneurship is a personal growth engine disguised as a business pursuit. Basically saying something like entrepreneurship, or taking on a project, or taking a leap of faith to improve yourself in any shape or form, is a personal growth engine. Like you have to act differently, you have to think differently, you have to put yourself out there, and like all of that comes. So anyway, long story short of that is that a really exciting period of my life required me to act and be someone different and to be a better person. And all of the sort of stress and all of the expectations which were falling on my shoulders in a very short space of time, I just honestly wasn't able to deal with it. It was too much. And there's this compounding double-edged thing here, where if what I felt was success, like being able to do something which I wanted to do, like if you then feel like you can't keep up with it, there's this double-edged sword, this double hit, where you're not able to be the person you want to be, or you're not able to step up in the moments where you need to step up, and the sort of doubt and the negativity that you say to yourself, you're not good enough, all these sorts of like lines of thinking begin to happen. So all of this like stress going on, wasn't able to deal with it. And on the flip side, what sort of tipped me into burnout, won't go into details, but in my personal life there was stresses as well. And these combination of these two things, if they had been happening in isolation, I may have been able to deal with it. But two things at once was just too much. what I'm learning now is like stress like manifests itself, and if you do not, which I want to talk about in this video, if you don't address stress and you just let it sit, that is not just like ignoring something and it will go away on its own. It's pretty much choosing to just allow it to build up, and then it will manifest in other areas of your life. For example, really your relationships with close people, how you look after yourself, and all this sorts of stuff. So long story short, burnout happened because I took too much on in a work sense. I wasn't able to reinvent myself and be a better person fast enough to keep up with it. And then there's a whole chicken and egg thing. And in this video, I'm not trying to like be prescriptive, and I'd rather not have to caveat things because I don't have the answers here. But there is a chicken and egg thing. Like, I don't know what happened, you know, personal stress can happen because you're taking too much on and you're too focused on your work, and that can lead you to not water other areas of your life and pay attention to them as much, and then that will then have a negative impact. So one thing I've learned is like not to jump into too many different thoughts, but momentum can be both positive and negative. And I think if you're in something like burnout, or you're in a slump or a dip, it will just snowball. But just like good things in your life can compound in a positive sense, so can negative stuff. So it probably was the case, actually, thinking out loud now, that professional stress or work stress led to personal stress. And I know that to be true. But anyway, I had too much going on and I burnt out, and I didn't realize for quite a long time, but I was burning the candle at both ends, which is a saying where, you know, you may be working into the night. Like, I would literally go upstairs to finish work at like 2 a.m. There was even times where I went up like up the stairs at like 4 a.m. because I was just like, there was so much I had to do. And there is this misalignment with like, when it comes to work or like deadlines and things like that, you know, if you feel like you should be stopping, you should stop. But if you've taken on too much on, or you don't want to underdeliver, or you've overpromised, all these sorts of different things, you'll keep going, right? And you can't keep sprinting. You can't keep going. You can do that a couple of times, like if you do an all-nighter or something, but as we all know, that will then hit you the next day. You can't keep going, like you can't keep sprinting. And I think you can't keep pushing against what your body is telling you. So if your body's like, I'm tired, and you keep pushing through, that's a very much a short-term tactic. And I was pretty much deploying that tactic day in, day out for like months. So long story short, like this sort of stress, I wasn't realizing it soon enough. I wasn't doing anything differently about it, burning the candle at both ends. That then manifested in itself of me like pretty much living quite a sedentary lifestyle. So because of COVID and stuff, like I work from home, so I wasn't really like, I was literally at my desk from like, I'd wake up at like 7 straight on my laptop, and I'd probably stop, like no joke, on a normal day like 10, where I would literally leave to get some food. And this is what I mean, it manifested in itself that I wouldn't have breaks, I wouldn't go for a walk, I wouldn't do the things that I said that I enjoyed, like reading a book, listen to podcasts, all this different stuff. And I just, this is where it compounds, where then I'm not looking after myself, and I'm chaining myself to something which is just not productive. No one can be productive for 12 hours in a day, 10 hours in a day. That's not productivity. That is not, like, no one can, right? It's more about what you get done, not how long you do it for. And then this thing compounded, and this is when it got bad, where I wasn't looking after myself, piling on weight, not leaving the house, not like attending to friendships or relationships. But like anything, you don't spot that like necessarily, like it's incremental. So just like you can make 1% improvements, which at the end of the year, will manifest itself in some huge benefit. Like going to the gym, you don't notice the benefits until like a year later. You look back at photos. I wasn't realizing all of this, was too close to it. And when other people started to realize it myself, I was just like, get away. I need to focus on this thing you don't understand. And I was just basically being a twat in response to them. So then it goes like this, right? And then what happened with me is the penny dropped when basically the rubber band of like the stress I was putting myself under, how I was wearing myself so thin. If you do that to a rubber band, it snaps. You wear the rubber too thin and it just snaps. And you cannot put that rubber band back to how it was before. It's going to have scars and stretch marks. And that's what happened with me. So this all climaxed, and looking back, you know, why did I burn out? I wasn't looking after myself. I was working too much. I was doing less of the stuff that I enjoyed. I wasn't exercising. I would forget to eat. There's a list of 10, 12 things of why I burnt out. So there's positives here that hopefully going forward, I will spot those in myself more. Or if this sounds like if you've been here before, you're in here now, this is hopefully a warning sign that left unattended is going to go somewhere bad and has to be stopped. I'm not going to prescribe what works, can only talk about myself. And there are a couple of things, thankfully, I can hold on to, which I think will help me not to get that bad again. Yeah, I've always been, I think, by default, someone who's very optimistic and enthusiastic, and I find happiness in very small things, and I have the most privileged life. So there's always like protective factors and a good group of friends and things like that. So there's always protective factors about why on any given day, if you spoke to Joe before up until being like 23, I would be 9 out of 10 happy. Like if you saw me, I'd be laughing or finding something silly or something like that, or finding something funny, which was small, or I was able to make myself happy, or I was able to think to put on my favorite song, or to think to go for a walk, or to just be in the sun kicking a ball about, and that would make me happy, right? So there all these like protective factors. But for the first time in my life, and this is when the penny dropped to me that something needs to change, was something else tipped me over. So I was balancing all these plates, all this stress. And if you're a quote unquote, or you think you're a high achiever, right, you're going to be juggling too many balls in the air. You're going to be spinning too many plates, right? But when stress happens, if you've taken on too many things, and something happens in life, and life happens, you could lose somebody close to you, something bad could happen, right? Which you didn't see coming. You're juggling these balls, and all of a sudden, like your attention has gone elsewhere. Like you literally, your mind will go elsewhere. Like this thing will happen and it will catch your attention and you'll look. If that happens and you're juggling all these plates, you are then going to drop the 20 plates that you were spinning. And if you're a high achiever, or you think you're a high achiever, or you want to be a high achiever, you accredit that with yourself, there's more things coming down for you than for somebody else. That's 20 plates that have just smashed on the floor, not 5. So, so if you just have a full-time job and you amazing. Like I'm like, I don't want to go into hustle culture stuff. Like if you do a 9 to 5, you do really well and you have a great life outside of that, amazing. Well, then when that one thing happens to you, you drop. And maybe you have an understanding boss. You can say, hey, like something happened in my personal life, is taking my attention elsewhere for now, and there won't be understanding, and that's great. When the rubber band snaps, it's like, okay, this is 20 smashed plates, 20 different things I have to address now, and I'm not feeling good to be able to address it. And this is where negative momentum compounded, like the negative version of compound interest, like, whoa, okay, that's a situation which is going to be impossible to get out of. And that's happened to me. And in that moment was the first time I've ever brushed with like my mental health being bad. And I literally, this is most likely oversharing, sat at the bottom of the stairs with my head in my hands, and I heard myself for the first time in my life say out loud, I don't want to be here anymore. And when I heard myself say that, it's like out of body experience where I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing? Why have I literally taken myself to a breaking point? Like you hear people say, like, people will probably spot it before you do. They'll say, look, like you're going to burn yourself out. You're going to run yourself into the ground. And this is literally where I am. Like, as I said, like I'm being able to sit down here because I'm feeling a little bit better. I've come up for air ever so slightly, and I wanted to hit record because I need to like voice these things. But that's where I've been. And where do you go from there? Like, where the hell do you go from there when you've taken on too much on? Everything's then failing. You can't deal with the stress, but you're in the most stressful situation now. And as I said, hearing myself say that was the most scariest thing. Like that, it was so scary hearing myself say that. I don't know why it took for me to literally reach the breaking point to do something about it. And I have researched burnout a bit more, and it is a feeling or like a state which stays for months, maybe even years. And that has been my experience. So I have been burnt out probably for at least a year now, starting to feel better, but it lingers. Like, it has its effect and it doesn't really go completely. I think it will. I like to think it will. You can push it down to zero, but it manifests, and it manifests for all the different reasons I've explained. Of like, you have to attend the stress when you're not feeling well enough to attend the stress. You have to pick up the pieces, and maybe you can put them back to how they looked, but there's scars and there's cuts, like there's visible marks that it's not quite where it was. So that is my story of burnout, and I want to now talk about some observations, and then to talk about some things which actually have helped me. But this is not me telling anyone, this is just only sharing my own experiences. One observation with burnout is there's a part of your brain, and I have looked into this, called the reticular activating system, which you may have heard of in the context of, you go for a walk and someone says yellow car, and then you start to see, you see a yellow car, or someone says, or you just buy a car, a new model of a car, and you suddenly see it everywhere on the road. And it's the part of your brain which, something to do with the subconscious mind, and you can kind of bring subconscious thoughts into awareness. It's something like that, where basically you start to spot things. So our brains can't attune to all the information that it gets at once, but you can start to like actively be aware of different things. Really rambly explanation. On the part of like negative momentum, I don't know which way around this is. It almost doesn't matter. But when you are burning out and you're feeling stressed and life is shit and you're not able to deal with it, for whatever evil sorcery is going on, other things in your life start to pile up. Your boss is pissed off with you, or a client's unhappy with you, or your relationship isn't going too well, or your friendship isn't going too well, or you get some bad news. And those things, as I say, I don't know which way around it is, because it could be the fact that you're not dealing with things as you should, and therefore that has a consequence eventually, which shows itself. Or just, I think, going back to this reticular activating system thingy, I think when you're in a bad place, you don't see the good, and you only see the bad. And you're more attuned to negativity, and you're more attuned to like what's bad in your life, and you're not focusing on what's good. And that definitely happened with me. Goes into a second observation, which, to describe how burnout felt for me, it was like a mist, basically, because it started to linger when things were going well with work, and I was beginning to build the business that I've always wanted to do. And everything was going well. Like, any onlooker in would see that things were going well, or Joe was doing stuff that he wanted to be doing. But it was like a mist. I couldn't see it for myself. I couldn't see that I was in a good situation. I couldn't see that there were some good things in my life. I couldn't see the people who were out stretching their hands to try and offer advice or support, because they could see, or maybe with how I was looking, that I wasn't in a good place. And burnout was a mist for me. It was a black mist where I could only see the bad, and attuned myself to that, and I could not see any of the good. And yeah, that's my best way of phrasing it. The fact I can even think about all this sorts of stuff and try and articulate my thoughts shows that I'm a bit more zoomed out now to understand that, look, there is some good stuff going on. And sort of another thing which helped me, another observation is, like getting things out of your brain and writing it down. So journaling, or writing things down in notes apps on your phone, being aware of the thoughts you're having, and wrestling with them, basically, because not every thought that we have is necessarily true, or we don't necessarily, we shouldn't necessarily identify ourselves with every thought that we have. So when I was in burnout, but obviously my narrative then when I was burnt out was just constantly negative, like you're this, you're that, however you let things get this bad, you're not able to deal with things, why did you try and do this thing, you're not good enough, all these sorts of thoughts, right? And this is all welded into itself, because I was believing all of that was true. It's not necessarily true, but not necessarily our thoughts, which is something really powerful that I've heard recently, but the narrative is only negative. Another thing which, like an observation, I guess, is you can't feel two emotions at once, and you can't think two things at once. So basically, like, if you're feeling stressed, you can then not be creative. If you're feeling angry, you can't also be calm. And when you're feeling bad and you're feeling negative about yourself, you're therefore by definition not doing all of the good things which make you feel good. So if you're stressed, you're not being creative. If you're feeling angry, frustrated at yourself, you're not being kind to yourself. And in these moments, what you need to be doing, obviously, is picking yourself out of this hole, this dip that you're in. And it's all just crossed and tied into each other because you're just so certain that everything's negative. You're so certain that you're a failure. You're so certain of all these sorts of things. So you're not thinking to be kind to yourself. But there's something in there where you can use that positively to think, right, okay, like this is why exercise, I'll talk now about what actually did help me. But if you have endorphins running through your body, and because you've just exercised, like that's physiological, and you take yourself away from like the psychological, you take yourself away from the minds and the thoughts and negative chatter, which is just like going on and on and on autopilot in your mind in this moment. But you're like objectively moving your body to have endorphins. So like objectively, you're doing something which is helping you, because in this moment you can't trust yourself because you're not able to help yourself in this moment. Just to round up those observations, like everything was a mist. I couldn't see that things were actually okay. There were some good things going on in my life, but I couldn't see them. I couldn't feel them. And then like to try and understand it, like I actually tried to understand the science behind burnout and what actually causes burnout in the body. And this thing about this reticular activating system is that you like it's like a science-backed reason why you are seeing the negative and not the good. Like it was comforting to look into that. And then also other things, like things we can be comfortable to say are facts, is that you can't have a negative thought at the same time as a positive thought. And you can use that then in a way to go, hang on, if I can say affirmations to myself or go for a walk or do some exercise, do something that is protecting me, because I, by definition, by doing that, I can't do this other thing, which is like negative and is inspiring. The last thing I want to go through is some things I actually thought did help me. So this is, as I say, I want to get out of this footy and then try and curate resources, like actual like evidence-based resources of how to get out of burnout, or like, I mean, all content I try and create, what I want to just provide value to a couple of people. There's nothing more important I can make or try and compile is resources about burnout which actually help, and to share that. But I don't want to be saying anything which is like, do these 5 things and you'll get out of burnout, because it's not, as this whole video hopefully is shown, it's not easy to do. I'm still not there after pretty much a full year of feeling burnt out. And it's going to be need to be individualized and personalized to you. However, off the top of my head, some things which actually have helped. A really small thing for me was actually having things to look forward to. So that really doesn't need to be big. Like knowing that you're meeting up for someone next week for coffee, or you're seeing a friend for a walk tomorrow. Having just like checkpoints in your calendar to work towards, to kind of ground you and to give you, okay, it's Tuesday and something's happening on Friday, really helped me. And on the point of, you can't have like a positive thought at the same time as a negative thought. Well, when I was burnt out, I stopped doing all of the things which I previously had enjoyment from. And one of my main observations or takeaways from all of this of burnout is I burnt out because I took on too much. So it is addition in that sense. But there's a huge level of subtraction. I actually stopped doing so many things as well, which led to burnout. I stopped, as I said, reading the book, listening to podcasts, meeting with friends, having cut-off times with my work, having time to myself, doing the things that I enjoy. And that's all going to be personalized, individual to you. So if you spot that you're not doing the things you enjoy, then that is an actionable thing that you can do, is to go, hang on, like, I love listening to podcasts, I love reading books, and I'm going to read one page later on. I'm going to put time in my calendar, or I'm going to have a priority today that I'm going to pick that book up, because I know that is in line with what I enjoy and who I am, and therefore it will help. So having things to look forward to, large or small, really helped me. We know that things like sleep, exercise, diet, when you're not feeling well, obviously it's like information overload. Like you're worried about it, you're getting yourself all worked up. So in a way, the biggest thing the most important piece of advice I would tell myself is forget absolutely everything, because for something to be a priority, you have to stop everything else. All I'm trying to say is, focusing on your sleep, your diet, your exercise, if you just forget about everything else and you can just try and go for a walk, try and do some sort of exercise where you're sweating, or go into the gym or anything like that, those, paying attention to that will help so many other things. You may walk back from the gym, feel good about yourself, and then have the headspace to do something else, which is then going to help you. And this was my experience, like putting attention into those three things, or like making sure you get 8 hours, trying to get back onto a consistent sleep schedule. You will feel a different person if you can start to do those things. And obviously you need to put up the routine, but again, don't worry about that. Just try and go, I am getting 8 hours sleep tonight, no matter what. And if you're all tied up of work or like projects or deadlines and things like that, you just say to yourself, I'm going to just do this time, I'm going to put myself first. In this one occasion, I'm going to put myself first and use this as a case study. I'm going to see the consequences of just shutting my laptop lid and dealing with it tomorrow, or dealing with it when I have more headspace and energy in the morning. I'm going to just test it. Test it for yourself, see for yourself that the world didn't end, and you can go from there. There's a phrase like, what's your big domino? Like, exercise is a large domino, which if you can achieve, if you picture the game dominoes, if you knock over that large domino, it's going to knock over like multiple small dominoes afterwards. And to me, exercise and sleep were those large dominoes, which when I was finally, and this obviously didn't happen straight away because I was burnt out for ages, but I was finally able to focus on that and put some attention to that and prioritize that, it did help the other things, like having a clear cut-off time, or wanting to eat a little bit better, a bit more nutritiously, a bit more healthily, which would then make me feel better as well, because I just got back to the gym and I was suddenly thinking, let's eat healthy. So those two things. So identify the big dominoes which you could help. So exercise and sleep, and prioritize those things really helped me personally. The second thing was having stuff to look forward to, because things felt pretty meaningless, to be honest. It just all felt bad. I was in a really bad spot and everything was negative. And I was in this like pit of sorrow for myself, feeling really bad, not letting anyone else in. And I think going back to normality of doing a couple of just normal things, like meeting up with someone or having something to look forward to, that would have then given me purpose to why I was trying to get out of the situation. I would have then given me perspective, because if you're with a friend, you meet up, you're going to just try and put your best self on, or ask them how they're doing and try and help them with their situation, because we can all help someone else better than we can help ourselves. And I think when I started to try and just get it in the calendar and tell people, like, I need to do something today, I need to see someone, not telling everyone how I was feeling, but look, like, I need to see you. Can someone be free? If in the next 2 weeks, even just knowing the next 2 weeks I'm doing one thing really helped me. I think the third thing, the third like biggest thing that helped me was just identifying the things that were causing stress and trying to attack them, like attack the root cause. And I think with the other two things I've said, this is something I'm trying to take forward now, to make sure it never happens again. And it's just being really honest, like, be truthful to yourself. Why are you feeling like this? And write it down. Like, why do I think I'm not in a good spot right now? Why am I in a dip? Why am I burnt out? Why am I feeling bad with my mental health? And you probably do know the reason why. You're probably not wanting to be honest with yourself, because it's most likely going to be a hard thing to admit, and it's going to take a new way of living or behavior change to change the situation. And most of us don't want to have to do that. We want to be in our comfort zones. We don't want to have a hard conversation with someone else. We don't want to have to change our lifestyle to be healthier, because it'd be so much easier to just continue where we're doing. But when you hit burnout or you're not feeling good, you cannot continue down that path. That path is a dead end, and it will lead to a bad place. And you have to, I think, what really helped me was just accepting. I think when I spoke out loud and I said, I'm not feeling good, I don't want to be here anymore, and I'm not happy, I hate my life, and all these different things, I think what was at the core of that was truth. It was honestly of, I'm in a situation which I need to get out of, and things can't continue like this. And that is, on both sides, the hardest place to be. But I think at that point, that awareness is the pivot to then turning it around. And as I say, the momentum, when you start to turn it around, you start to go in the other direction, you start to look after yourself, things can then compound in the positive sense. And to end this whole video on a positive sense, when you start to accept your situation, you start to tackle the root causes, you start to make tiny steps in the right direction, that then compounds and you start to feel better. And thankfully, that's where I am right now. I'm not completely there. I don't have all of the answers, but this whole rambly long video has been my experience with burnout, and I want to get out of the situation, and then I want to be able to reflect back and be like, this is the stuff that actually did help me. And if anyone watching this video is having anything which resonates because you're in the situation, you're spotting signs yourself that you may be on this path, then hopefully, feel that you can reach out to me on any social media platform, email, whatever, because content to me is trying to help at least one other person. And this is probably the most important video I could have recorded. Not comfortable recording it at all. I had a burst of energy to sit down and do it, which is why I've just done it. But if you're sensing any of these things that you're in the situation, then hopefully you will be more attuned to doing a couple of things which will make you feel better. I don't know what else more to say on this, but I hope to be able to produce some sort of resource or share. Maybe someone else has done all of the work already and it's evidence-based and all this sorts of stuff, and I can just bring light to that. But I want to I hope by sharing my experience of how I'm feeling will maybe bring it to people's awareness a little bit more, to your awareness, that when you're not in a good spot, like, you need to then do something differently about that to get out of that situation. And stress unattended is going to manifest in your life in different ways, and you need to attend to it. And if there are stresses in your life you're ignoring, that's gonna go somewhere bad until you address it. In a way, I'm quite grateful that I've been through this, because I have a huge layer of perspective now. Not looking after myself in days, like, that becomes months and that becomes years. What that does to someone and how that becomes bigger, I just don't want to ever go back there again. So I'm quite grateful actually for the perspective that all this has given me. Even recording this now, I feel like a weight is off my shoulders. So yeah, I don't know, wrapping up this video, that was my experience of burnout. I'm not out of it yet, but I hope to be. And when I am, I don't want to ever go back to that spot. I'm hoping to use this perspective in a positive way to be a better version of myself, and to live my life and to design my life in a way which is more sustainable and more in line with what I want to do and what feels good. And that's all we can do. So yeah, thank you for watching this video, and hopefully we can stop at least one person from hitting the lows that I hit.